There was a time when Andrew Garfield was just another struggling actor, a young dreamer with no guarantees, no security, and no certainty that the world would ever know his name, and that's what makes his journey so powerful, because unlike overnight success stories, his path was filled with doubt, rejection, heartbreak, and moments where giving up would have been the easiest option. Yet he didn't, and that decision alone changed everything. Because Andrew Garfield didn't chase fame, he chased meaning, he chased truth in his craft. He chased the kind of acting that makes people feel something real, something deep, something unforgettable. And that's why his story is not just about success. It's about resilience, because when he first started, he wasn't the obvious choice. He didn't fit the typical mold of a Hollywood superstar. He wasn't handed opportunities. He had to earn every single one of them. Step by step, audition by audition, rejection after rejection, and imagine the mental strength it takes to keep going when doors keep closing in your face. When people tell you indirectly or directly that you're not enough, that you don't have what it takes, that maybe this dream isn't for you, but Andrew Garfield refused to let others define his limits. He believed in something bigger than fear, and that belief slowly started opening doors, small roles at first, performances that many people might overlook, but he treated every role like it mattered, like it was his moment, because he understood something most people don't, that success isn't built in one big break. It's built in hundreds of small moments where you choose to give your best even when no one is watching. And then came the turning point, the moment where the world finally started paying attention. But even that wasn't simple. Even that came with pressure, expectations, and criticism. Because when he stepped into the role of Spider-Man, one of the most iconic characters in the world, he wasn't just playing a superhero, he was stepping into a legacy, and people were ready to judge, ready to compare, ready to criticize. And yet he didn't run from that pressure, he embraced it. He brought vulnerability, emotion, and depth to the character, showing the world that even superheroes can feel broken, can feel lost, can feel human, and that's what made his performance stand out. Because it wasn't just acting, it was honesty, but what most people don't see is what happens behind the scenes. The emotional weight, the personal struggles, the sacrifices, because while the world saw success, Andrew Garfield was going through his own battles, including the heartbreaking loss of his mother, a pain so deep that it changes you forever. And instead of hiding from that pain, he carried it into his work. He allowed it to shape his performances, to make them more real, more raw, more powerful. And that's the difference between someone who acts and someone who truly connects. Because real art comes from real emotion, and Andrew Garfield never shied away from that truth. He used his pain as fuel, as a source of strength, and that's something we can all learn from, because life will test you, it will break you, it will push you to your limits, but what defines you is how you respond. Whether you let it stop you or you let it transform you, and Andrew chose transformation, he chose growth. He chose to keep moving forward even when it hurt, even when it was difficult, even when it felt impossible. And that mindset is what eventually led him to some of his most powerful performances, roles that went beyond entertainment and became something meaningful, something that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. And that's the kind of legacy he's building, not just as an actor, but as a human being who refuses to be defined by fear, who refuses to settle for mediocrity, who continues to evolve, to challenge himself, to take risks, because true success isn't about playing it safe, it's about stepping into the unknown, about trusting yourself even when the outcome is uncertain. And that's exactly what Andrew Garfield has done throughout his career, time and time again, and that's why his story resonates with so many people, because it's not just about Hollywood, it's about life, it's about chasing something that matters to you, even when the odds are against you, even when the world doesn't believe in you yet. Because belief doesn't start with others, it starts with you. And Andrew Garfield is proof that when you stay true to yourself, when you stay committed to your passion, when you refuse to give up, something incredible can happen, not overnight, not instantly, but gradually, step by step, moment by moment, until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. And that's the beauty of his journey. It reminds us that success isn't just about reaching the top, it's about becoming the kind of person who deserves to be there, someone who has faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and grown stronger because of them. And if there's one lesson to take from Andrew Garfield's story, it's this: don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for approval. Don't wait for certainty, because those things may never come. Instead, start where you are. Use what you have and keep going no matter what, because the only way to truly fail is to stop trying. And as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep believing, your story is still being written. And just like Andrew Garfield, you have the power to turn struggle into strength, pain into purpose, and dreams into reality. All it takes is one decision, the decision to not give up. And what most people don't realize is that the journey doesn't suddenly become easy after success. In fact, in many ways, it becomes even harder, because now the expectations are higher, the spotlight is brighter, and the pressure to prove yourself never really goes away. And Andrew Garfield understood this better than most, because after stepping away from Spider-Man, a role that defined a huge part of his public identity, he faced a different kind of challenge, not the struggle to be seen, but the struggle to redefine himself, to show the world that he was more than just one character, more than just one version of success. And that kind of transition can break a lot of people, because when the world puts you in a box, it's comfortable to stay there, it's safe, it's predictable. But Andrew chose discomfort. He chose uncertainty. He chose to take roles that were risky, emotional, and deeply human, roles that didn't guarantee box office success but offered something far more valuable: artistic truth. And that decision speaks volumes about who he is, because it shows that he's not driven by fame, he's driven by purpose, by a desire to grow, to explore, to understand the human experience on a deeper level. And that's what separates great actors from legendary ones: the willingness to be vulnerable, to step into characters that are broken, flawed, searching. Because in those imperfections, people find connection, they find pieces of themselves. And Andrew Garfield became a master of that connection, delivering performances that feel less like acting and more like living, breathing moments captured on screen. And behind that ability is something even more important: courage. The courage to face your own emotions, your own fears, your own doubts, and instead of hiding them, using them as tools. Because real strength isn't about pretending to be unbreakable, it's about embracing the cracks and finding beauty in them. And Andrew's journey after his mainstream fame is a perfect example of that philosophy, because instead of chasing the next big blockbuster, he focused on meaningful storytelling, on projects that challenged him, that pushed him out of his comfort zone. And that's where his true brilliance began to shine even brighter. Because when you remove the noise of expectations, when you stop trying to please everyone, you start discovering who you really are. And that's exactly what he did. He rediscovered himself, not as a celebrity, but as an artist, as someone who is constantly evolving, constantly learning, constantly searching for something deeper. And that's a powerful lesson for anyone watching this, because life will often try to define you based on your past, based on your biggest success or your biggest failure. But you are not a single moment. You are a continuous story, and you have the right to change, to grow, to become something new, no matter where you are right now. And Andrew Garfield's journey reminds us that reinvention is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign that you're not afraid to let go of who you were in order to become who you're meant to be. And that process is never easy. It requires letting go of comfort, of certainty, of the familiar. But on the other side of that discomfort is growth, is freedom, is a version of yourself that you never thought possible. And Andrew embraced that process fully. He didn't resist it. He didn't run from it. He walked straight into it. And that's why his later performances carry so much depth, so much authenticity, because they come from a place of truth, from a place of real experience, real emotion, real understanding. And when people watch him on screen, they don't just see a character, they feel something. They connect with something deeper. And that's the ultimate goal of any artist: to create something that resonates, something that stays with people long after the moment has passed. And Andrew Garfield has achieved that not by following the crowd, but by following his heart, by staying true to himself even when it was difficult, even when it meant taking risks that others might not understand. And that's the kind of mindset that leads to lasting success, not the kind that fades with trends, but the kind that grows stronger over time.